I left for my deployment to Afghanistan with a heavy heart, but a clear conscience. My home, a small but comfortable house I'd bought with my savings, was in the hands of the Homeowners Association. I'd filled out all the paperwork, paid my dues in advance, and entrusted them to keep an eye on the place. For the first few months, everything seemed fine. My neighbor, a sweet old lady named Mrs. Gable, would email me updates, telling me everything was quiet. But then, her emails stopped. I tried to reach her but got no reply. I contacted the HOA, but they were evasive, giving me vague answers about Mrs. Gable moving to a retirement home. A sense of unease began to creep in. When I finally returned home, the last thing I expected to find was a strange family living in my house. A man I'd never seen before answered the door, a confused and slightly hostile look on his face. He claimed he was renting the place. My blood ran cold. I showed him my ownership documents, my military ID, everything. He just shook his head, pulling out a lease agreement with the HOA's letterhead. It was then that I knew something was terribly wrong. The HOA had rented out my home. My first call was to the police. They were sympathetic, but their hands were tied. It was a civil matter, they said. I was furious. I'd served my country, and this is what I came home to. My sanctuary, my personal space, violated and occupied. I tried to reason with the tenants, a young couple with a small child. They were as much victims as I was, duped by the HOA's greed. They'd paid a year's rent up front and had nowhere else to go. My next stop was the HOA office. The board members, led by a woman named Karen who seemed to ooze a sense of self-importance, were dismissive. They claimed I'd abandoned the property, that they had the right to lease it out to cover maintenance costs. It was a blatant lie. I had the emails, the bank statements, the proof that I'd fulfilled all my obligations. They didn't care. They thought I was just some young soldier they could push around. They were about to find out how wrong they were. I contacted my commanding officer, who was furious. He told me to gather my platoon. We weren't going to let this injustice stand. The next morning, a convoy of military vehicles rolled into the quiet suburban street. My entire platoon, in full uniform, stood in front of my house. The neighbors came out, their eyes wide with a mixture of fear and curiosity. The tenants, seeing the sheer force assembled on their doorstep, quickly packed their bags and left. Karen and the rest of the HOA board arrived, their faces a mask of panic. They started shouting about trespassing, about calling the police. I just smiled. "Go ahead," I said. "Tell them the army is here to reclaim stolen property." The police did arrive, but this time they weren't so quick to dismiss me. Seeing a platoon of soldiers and a very angry commanding officer, they started to take the situation seriously. The HOA scam quickly unraveled. They had a history of preying on deployed soldiers, renting out their homes and pocketing the money. They'd forged documents, lied to the tenants, and bullied anyone who questioned them. But this time, they'd picked the wrong soldier. The story hit the local news, then the national news. The HOA was disgraced, its members facing a slew of legal charges. I got my house back, but it didn't feel like home anymore. The sense of violation was too deep. I sold the house and moved away, but not before making sure the HOA was completely dismantled. I still keep in touch with Mrs. Gable, who had been forced out by the HOA's intimidation tactics. She's living happily with her daughter now. As for me, I learned a hard lesson about trust and the dark side of suburbia. But I also learned that sometimes you have to fight for what's right, and that you're never truly alone when you have your brothers and sisters in arms by your side.